What are some true scary experiences that you Redditors have been through? Creepy strangers, unexplainable incidents, narrow misses, etc. I know a variation of this has been asked before, but I can't get enough of these stories. I once found myself in a cave, along with 8 or 9 other people. It was the middle of the Pennsylvania wilderness, and the only entrance was a small hole in the ground. To enter, you had to sit on your ass, grab a tree root, and drop about 7 feet down a steep wall to the floor. We all dropped in, and spent at least half an hour exploring this cave. My friend Dan taps me on the shoulder and whispers, "Dude, look at the ceiling." The ceiling was just high enough above our heads to hide the thousands of spiders crawling around on it. We tried to keep quiet about it, because we didn't want anyone to flip out, but there was no stopping it. Just seconds later the whole group noticed them. Everyone got silent, and you could actually hear the spiders crawling on the surface of the stone. It was an extra nerve-wracking situation, because the only way to exit the cave was to basically jump up and pull yourself out of a hole surrounded by spiders. 2 of the girls with us were terrified and refused to climb out. They just couldn't muster the courage to put their faces next to a giant spider nests. They came around though, and everyone got out safe. I had the honor of being the last one to exit, alone in a dark cave filled with spiders, and nobody around to give me a boost. Fortunately, Dan was brave enough to reach down in and give me a hand. When we first discovered that cave, we were all like, "I can't believe we've never heard of this place." Now I know why. That cave sucks. A few months later, I found out the cave is off limits in the fall because of the rattlesnakes. Duck that cave. When I was about 12, I had a lot of issues with night terrors and rarely slept a whole night through. One night, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I sat down, half asleep and thinking of nothing but emptying my bladder and going back to bed when I see movement out of the corner of my eye. There was a man standing by the other door to the bathroom staring at me, not moving. He was wearing a tattered grey jumpsuit and had a crutch. Little to no hair. I don't remember how I got down into the basement where my parents slept, but suddenly there I was. Hysterical. My dad finally went up and looked in the bathroom and kitchen. Saw nothing but allowed me to sleep on the couch down there anyway. I didn't fall back asleep. About an hour or so later, I heard the sliding door to the bathroom from my sister's room and limping footsteps. The next morning my dad searched around and noticed that the fridge and pantry had been raided. Never caught the guy. Reposted from previous scary thread a while back. A similar thing happened to a friend of my sister's. She'd been taking sleeping pills because she was stressed out about the HSC, Australian version of SAT, and wasn't getting much sleep. The problem was they were giving her weird night terrors. I don't know why this didn't make her stop taking them, but whatever. Anyway, one night she thought she heard breathing under her bed, so looked and saw a large bearded man in dirty clothes there. She screamed and ran to her parents' room, but her parents dismissed it as just being the pills. She was semi-convinced, so went back to bed and forced herself not to check under the bed again. The next morning they wake up and the entire bottom floor of the house has been messed up and a bunch of stuff was stolen. This is why I took apart my bed frame, and my mattress is now on the floor. Not that I expect hobos to wander into my room of all places, but holy hell, I would never sleep again. I was driving home through back roads I had never been on and came across a bookstore in a tiny town in the woods. The bookstore was actually a house, where the front of the home had been converted into a store. There was a box on the porch that said 50 books, so I stopped to see if there were any Stephen King books in there. Middle-aged woman comes out with a huge smile and gives me a bowl of fruit and some tea. I'm like, this place is awesome, and rifle through books while eating the fruit and downing the tea. Inside the store/home, there were a lot of cool art books and stuff, so I spent some more time in there. She brought me more tea, even when I said, "No thank you, that's plenty." She kept refilling. Gave me dessert too, brownies and cookies. I didn't realize it at the time, but she was drugging me. It's hazy to remember the details, but at some point, she closed the shop, telling me to take my time looking at the books. She told me that she was going to go take a shower, and was gone for a while. When I was ready to pay, I had to wander back through her house to find her. I found her in her bedroom. She was in bed. I'm pretty sure she was naked. At the time, I thought weird. She's watching an exercise video in bed, but later realized she was watching porn. You might think this is hot, but it isn't. She was my mom's age, and had been telling me how she reminded me of her kids in college. So, not hot. I told her I was ready to pay, and she told me how to open the register. So I went and opened it, put in what I thought I owed, took out the change, and left. When I stumbled outside, a fire engine drove by, screaming with sirens. In the distance was the glow of a big forest fire, and the stars were being covered by smoke. A tall man on a horse watched the fire truck pass. He looked right at me, took a piece of wood or something out of his mouth, and said, "Town's burning." I swear to God I have a crystal clear memory of this happening, even though I'm sure it couldn't have. By this point, I guess I was seriously tripping balls on something. I'm not a drug guy, so I don't know what I had, but I was out of my mind and could hardly walk. I got back in my car and drove home along twisting roads on tall cliffs above the ocean. Twice I realized I was on the wrong side of the road. One of the times I realized this because a massive truck was headed straight for me, laying on the horn and flashing its lights. I kept thinking about how my car could be like an airplane and a submarine if I drove it off the cliff. I can't believe I made it home alive. Later I realized I was in that house for about 4 hours looking at books. At least that's what I hoped to hell I was doing. TL. Doctor, a middle-aged woman drugged me, and I probably almost ended up as a gimp in her basement. I'm an electrician, so I tend to get into undesirable places. For instance, I was under a house with a cordless sawzall to make a hole for a cooktop vent. I started to hear some scurrying noises and shined my flashlight towards the noise to find 3 cottonmouth snakes coming my way. Apparently primal fear makes me wield that saw like a duck in Ninja. Me 3 snakes 0. Not me but a friend of mine, female, about 22 at the time, worked for Google Maps as some sort of surveyor or photographer. Google sends her and another female coworker to some remote location in Mexico for a few days for business. The hotel they were staying at was apparently nice enough, but literally outside the walls of the hotel was a really rough ghetto with people living in boxes lining the streets. Anyway, the first day of the trip she and her coworker are taking a taxi to the location they have to survey, and at a red light, some crazy guy opens the door, tries to pull my friend out, and then starts stabbing her in the chest with a knife. The cab driver pulled away but not before she'd been stabbed 6 times. She survived but has pretty bad scars and has become a much different and quieter person since. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.